Hi everyone, Miss Eden back with you for another recipe, and this week we're going to make savoury tarts. We are going to learn how to use the rubbing in method for a different kind of outcome. We have used it for different recipes in the past, and this week we're going to make pastry, which is actually a slightly higher level skill. It's a little bit more complicated. So to make it a bit more straightforward for us, we're going to keep the fillings really simple. But you could add something else if you particularly wanted. Could be maybe a slice of ham or a spring onion or some mushrooms, whatever you choose. But we're just going to keep it simple for now. As a side note, if you are gluten intolerant and plan to make this gluten-free, making pastry gluten-free is really quite tricky. But my previous experience, because I'm actually a fairly adequate gluten-free cook, my experience would say to add a generous amount of guar or xanthan gum, and either in place or in addition to the water, to add an egg, because that will act as the glue. Otherwise, I would recommend that you find a recipe online to follow. To begin with, we need to preset our oven to gas mark 5 or 180 Celsius. Then we need to get ourselves ready for practical, or mise en place. So apron, hair, washing our hands, sanitising our surfaces, getting half a bowl of hot soapy water, our equipment ready, and we can go through the ingredients now. You will need 200 grams of plain flour, 100 grams of margarine or butter at room temperature, some water up to 4 tablespoons, 40 grams of cheese, 75 grams or millilitres of milk, 1 egg, and you will also need 12 muffin or bun tins. The first step is to sieve our flour into our bowl. We are not doing it to necessarily aerate it in this case, but it will break out any lumps. And now we want to cut up our margarine into our flour. So if you recall from last time, we cut this large piece into much smaller pieces, cutting up the side of the bowl so that we can get some purchase, not trying to just hover in the middle of the bowl. Just cutting it up into smaller, manageable pieces. There we go, that looks fine. And now we want to, remember, lift up the flour out of the bowl, allowing it to fall through the gaps in our fingers while we use our fingertips to press the margarine or butter all the way through. Kind of like playing a xylophone across our fingertips. The consistency that we want is like a fine breadcrumb. Always dig your fingers right down into the bottom of the bowl in order to pick up the loose flour and make sure that everything's mixed in. When we think we are nearly there, we just want to shake it side to side until we get the large lumps come to the surface, and we can break those up with our fingertips and focus on those. So we should have lovely breadcrumb consistency from our rubbing in method, ready for the next stage. Now we want to add the water in, a tablespoon at a time. I'm going to start with 2. I'm going to grab a spoon and mix it all in. To press fairly firmly to actually encourage it together, rather than just pushing it around the bowl, actually trying to make it go. So now I'm going to add a third and mix it in. Now you can see it's actually starting to come together. So this is where it becomes a bit of a judgment call. So I'm going to get my hands in now and I'm going to see if it's holding itself together sufficiently or if it needs any more water. And this is something that comes with practice, something that experience sort of teaches you. So that has some elasticity to it, but it's not sticky. It's breaking a little bit readily. I'm going to add half a tablespoon, I'm just going to estimate, half a tablespoon. I reckon in this case that will probably be sufficient. Don't think it's going to need the full 4. Let's work that in. And that looks about right to me. So it's just a fraction stickier than previously. It's got a little bit more resistance to it. That looks about right to me. You'll know if it feels too sticky, if it looks too sticky, because it will start to squidge, stick to the sides of the bowl. So that looks about right to me. Next we are going to flour our surface. Generous pinch, make sure that you have plenty of flour at the ready, on standby next to you, because we're going to need it for this one. And we're going to put it down and flip it over and flour the surface some more. So now I'm going to take my rolling pin, I'm going to flour my rolling pin a little bit as well. Okay. And I'm going to roll it out. Now I'm just pushing gently, not pushing too hard, but I want to make sure it's even all the way across. I don't want it to be very, very thin in the middle and very thick and chunky at the edges. Try and keep it nice and even. And when I've rolled it out a little ways, not very far, I'm going to flour it. I'm going to pick it up, I'm going to flip it over, making sure that I've got flour underneath as well. And I'm going to flour the surface again. And you can see I've rotated it 90 degrees. I'm going to squidge it round a little bit as well. Try and keep the sides in so they don't spread out too far. And now I can roll it out this way. See, so even all the way to the edges. Trying to keep it a consistent thickness. And I'm going to flour the surface, and I'm going to pick it up, I'm going to flip it and turn it 90 degrees. And I'm going to rotate it as well, try and keep those edges in so they don't break up too badly. And I'm going to roll it out again. There we go. So we are looking for a thickness like a pound coin. So you just have to eyeball it, see if you think that's about right. Just make sure that you can lift it off the surface, because what you don't want it to do is to stick down. And just feel for any areas where it might be a little bit thicker, so just to make sure it's nice and even and consistent. Now we want to pick a cutter that's going to be suitable for our tins. If you are using a bun tin, it won't need to be quite so deep. Obviously the muffin tins are quite a bit deeper. So I'm going to take my cutters here. Let's have a little look. How about this one? That's the same size as it, so that's not going to be suitable. Let's try the next one up. That's probably more realistic, so you want it to be larger than the opening of the tin. So of course we always start at an edge, never just in the middle, right up against the edge, all the way down, give it a little wiggle, and then round to the next one, and do that all the way around until you have them all. So once you've cut them out, you want to lift them up very gently and place them in, and then just give them some encouragement all the way down. And we'll do that for the rest, and then we will roll up the remaining dough and pop it in so that we have 12 in total. Next we want to grate our cheese, as we've learned before, making sure we're holding the top of the grater using long strokes on the long grate side. When you get closer to the end, put your fingers flat so that you can feel when the grate's coming up, and then you won't catch your fingers and hurt yourself. There we go. Now we can take our pastry, and we want to make sure that we're putting an even amount into each one. So divide it in half and then roughly into 6 again, so that we're not overloading one and having too little in another. So take a little pinch like so, pop it in there, and then the next one, and so on. Next we want to mix our milk and our egg together. So holding the egg in our non-dominant hand, so I'm right-handed, my left, back of a knife, one good hit, thumbs to break it up into there, and then using a fork with a circular action, which should all be in the wrist, not up in your shoulder. Oops, try not to make a mess. There we go, until it's all mixed in. And then we want to divide the liquid volume equally between each tart. Start with less than you think initially, because you can always add a little more, but you can't take away if you were to overfill one, because then otherwise you're going to end up with one that hasn't got enough in it. There we go. So I only have a little bit left, so I can just find the 1 or 2 that maybe need a little top up. There we go. And those look about perfect. So those are ready to go in the oven. So now we can put them in the oven for around 10 to 15 minutes, making sure you keep an eye on them, that they're not overflowing and they are cooking evenly. We want them to be a golden brown around the pastry. So here they are out of the oven, and we want to put them down on a trivet to protect our surfaces. And then using something just to lift them out, we transfer them over to our cooling rack. You can see that they are just golden brown on the edges, they are golden where the cheese is, and they should be dark on the bottom. And we'll do that for all 12. These are another great option as a savoury snack between meals to avoid us snacking on crisps and sweets and the like. They're cheesy, easy to eat, little bite-sized things. You can put them in your lunchbox, a really great option. I hope your pastry was successful. It is a high-level skill, so if you struggled, that's okay, remember, and just practice again. And I'll see you next time.